Okay, I guess we're live here on Watershed Wednesday, the City of Santa Barbara Creeks Division. Thanks for joining us. We're going to do a watershed activity, a little bit fun, a little bit science, and I think, and pretty interesting. Okay, are we waiting for some people to come on?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I am Jill Murray. I am the Water Quality Research Coordinator for the Creeks Division. So I do a lot of our sampling and planning for what we should sample for and coordination of that, and then interpretation of results, getting information out to you, the public, and also thinking about how what we learn about water quality affects our programs and planning, and then we try to get our information out to a wider audience whenever that's appropriate as well. So this is a little diversion, doing a fun science activity, but I love this stuff. Okay, so should I start?
Sure.
Okay.
And you can tell people if they have questions.
Okay, if anyone has questions while we're live, you can type in your questions in the comments below this post and we'll see them and get to them. We've got you up on the screen. And if you're not watching this live and coming back, we still check our comments, so you'll get an answer. And then I'm hoping if you have a couple of hands that you could do a little video of when we actually get to the spraying the water part and you've made your own creations. If we could, you could do a little video and even put it up on your comment. That would be fun too, to see what you all have done. Okay, so some of you might already know what a watershed is. A lot of kids have learned this in school. It's the area of land that when rain falls on that area, all drains or runs off to the same creek or river or storm drain or channel going straight into the ocean. And we have a aerial photo with our watershed boundaries in yellow. This is of Santa Barbara. We have 4 main watersheds: Sycamore Creek, Laguna Creek, Mission Creek, and Arroyo Burro watershed. So if you're downtown east of State Street and rain is falling and you're looking at it in the gutters, it's probably going down into the Laguna Channel and coming out by those pumps that you can see down along Cabrillo. If you're just west of State Street and rain is falling, probably it's going to get into Mission Creek and then come out right at the mouth of Mission Creek. A lot of these these outflows join sometimes. Some of you may live over on the lower east side and Sycamore Creek watershed, and then out Arroyo Burro watershed. So it's one thing to know that kind of on paper, but what does that actually look like in 3 dimensions? And that's what we're going to do next. So now we get to use some of our supplies. I hope you have your squirt bottle with set to a mist with just water in it, scotch tape, markers, good washable markers that are pretty fresh are the best. So even if your colors aren't perfect, it's probably better to have fresher markers. So let's start with just learning what a watershed is. So take a clean piece of paper, crumple it up. You can crumple it all the way. You can kind of scrunch it from the sides, either way. Pull it back out. Let's see, pull it back out, and so put it over on our tray. And now you can see this topography, and what we're going to do is help visualize that topography better. So take your brown marker, and we're going to draw along the high points or the ridges. And we're not going for perfection here at all. This is just to help us get the visual. Got some ridges here. This kind of comes over a little further. That's kind of a little ridge right there. But we've got our main ones marked here. Oh wait, okay, let's do right here. Okay, and now we're going to take our blue marker and mark where we think the drainages are. So come down this little canyon, come down in here. Got some side drainages. Even some small ones up here. And I hope you guys are doing this along. I hope you're doing this at home too. Much more fun to have your own hands on. Okay, so now we've got, if you kind of look down on it, you're going to see what looks almost like a topographical map. You've got your high points in brown and your low points in blue. And what happens when it rains? Let's try to take that mister. Actually, I think I'll put some paper towels under, just kind of mop up. You can do this with paper towels or a rag. Okay. Okay. So we just want a light rain, not too much, not too little. And you can see that, you can see the water coming down the hillsides and getting into our low spots. So any rain that fell on this side of this ridge is heading down into this valley. Any rain that fell on this side of the ridge is heading down into the valley. But any rain over here is actually going off the side of the paper, not going to come into our main watershed here. Oh, and if you do this again, you can put some green on the sides. Let's just try it again with a little bit of green on the side. Crumple that one up. Trash can. Okay, let's try that again with some green landscape. We'll do our ridges. I'm just going to do a little bit here just to see what it looks like with the green. It's different every time. Sometimes it works out really well. Sometimes it doesn't. There's our creek. Let's see if we can get some material to move off the landscape. We'll do some green here. See if we can get some green to come down the hillside into our creek. Yep, you can see some of that bright green has made it down into our river valley. This is definitely more like a natural landscape. You're not going to see buildings and anything this steep usually, but if you kind of flatten it out, you can sort of imagine what that might be like in something more like Santa Barbara, where we've got some lower ridges, but with time we would get some runoff into our creeks. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're like really increasing our physical intuition of how this works. We're hearing about the watersheds. We're hearing about how we need to keep them clean. We're just exploring what does that look like in 3 dimensions when we can actually simulate some rainfall. And now you'll understand that connection between rainfall and runoff and hydrology a bit better. Thinking about Santa Barbara, we clearly have our big ridge to the north and our urban area down here. Every time rain falls on the ridge, it's either falling on our side of it and it's coming down into one of our 4 creeks, or it's falling on the back side of that ridge and going down and along the Santa Ynez River, Paradise, and into our reservoirs. Now we're going to think about watersheds in the urban environment. And in Santa Barbara, we have our gorgeous creeks right in the middle of town. And living in that creek water are many critters that rely on getting that rainfall and clean rainfall into the creeks. Did you watch our Watershed Wednesday last week with Tim Burgess? He put his waterproof camera into the water at Rocky Nook and found quite a few critters. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going back on our page and watching it. I have really had a ball watching it. One of the things that he saw underwater were dragonfly larvae. So there's so many aquatic insects. So a lot of our insects that fly around that we love, dragonflies, for example, when they're born into water and they live the first parts of their life entirely immersed in water, and they're very sensitive to pollution. They really need clean water. Then they are feeding steelhead trout. Birds are eating them. There's a lot of critters along our creek corridors that rely on the aquatic insects that need to live and reproduce in our creeks. Now, let's think about pollution. Okay, so keeping water clean in the urban environment takes a lot of effort, and we're going to learn why. Okay, so take your printed graphic, and this is like the preformed activity, and we'll do this one together. But after this, you can go and do all of your own, draw your own watersheds, do your own experiments and comparisons. And if you can, take a picture of it before you spray it, and then do a little video of the spray. It'll be really fun to see. Okay, so first we're gonna, we'll follow the directions, which are right here. We're gonna fold down our ridge. We're gonna fold up each of the creeks. Okay. So we've got two watersheds side by side. We're going to have one watershed we're going to call the low impact watershed. This is where we're in an urban landscape, but we've tried to impact water quality as little as possible. On the right side, we're going to have our high impact watershed, and this is where the urban area was developed and water quality wasn't and still isn't really a consideration. Of course, these are both exaggerations of real life. Okay, so we'll take our blue marker, we'll color our creeks. Just a line down the middle, coming right down into the ocean. Our other creek. If you have someone who's looking for something to do while we're doing this and they're really, they're artistic, you can have them draw a nice ocean scene on a separate piece of paper, and we can add that to our oceans below. But our creeks come into our oceans here with fish and ocean recreation. Okay, now we are going to, before we add our pollution, we're going to cover some of our paper in a very smooth surface. We're going to use Scotch tape to mimic the effect of paving over the landscape. Our paper, as we saw on that last experiment, is a little bit porous. It takes in some of the water. This is going to create a much smoother surface. So just take pieces and put them on all of the areas that are hashed, our buildings and our roads. And they don't need to be perfect at all. Okay, you can do it over the factory. You can do it over the storm drain. And that's probably a little long. Okay. Okay, now we'll do the right side. There's our storm drain. We've got a store. We've got a house. You can notice that the features are the same on each side. We still have stores, we still have houses, we still have roads, we still have storm drains on both sides. But the way they're arranged is a little different. We'll get back to that. Oh, I guess the highly developed side does have an extra road down here. Okay. Did I get that all? Yeah, okay. Okay, now we'll add our pollution. So let's start on the highly developed side, the high impact side. On the high impact side, there's a factory. Let's color that circle red. Red is going to be our proxy for pollution. It could be a lot of different kinds of pollution. It could be oils, oil drippings. It could be pesticides. It could be a factory's discharge. It could be sediment, herbicides, weed killers, trash. So here we've got the factory that's producing some kind of pollution. We've got a store. Store has lots of trash out front. Draw it. Make sure you're drawing this on the tape, okay? They've got ant problems, maybe some other bug problems, and they're spraying around the back. They've got a dumpster out back that leaks. So this store is pretty surrounded by red dots. The house, maybe they've washed their car, like right in their driveway. They might use some non-organic, they might use some pesticides and herbicides in their yard. The parking lot, there could be a mobile washer that meets people and washes their cars right there in the lot with a lot of soap. They might also do some weed control. On this road, there's nobody is fixing their oil leaks, so there's just oil leaks all over. On the sidewalk, on the cracks, you ever see people just spraying the cracks with herbicide? We'll just cover each one of those sidewalk cracks with herbicide. Okay. Oh, then in the storm drain, we've got oil is being dumped, trash is being dumped. It's going right into our curb inlets, and it's probably filling up part of the storm drain too. Okay, that's our high impact side. We've developed this watershed with our urban landscape, and we have not protected water quality. On our low impact side, we've got the same factory. We'll color that in. We still have things we need to do, of course. We've got the store. There's a lot of trash cans. They're really good about sweeping up and not hosing off. So there might be a little bit of trash. They might have had to spot control some insects, so maybe a couple little dots. The house is all organic, and they sweep their driveway. They don't hose it down. They only wash their car on a grass area, or maybe they take it to the car wash, and they fix all their oil leaks. So really, they're not contributing any deliberate, or there's nothing they know about, but there's still like blown dust can have stuff that lands on the roofs. Birds can take up residence. So there might dog waste on their sidewalk. Something might come off. The parking lot, same thing. They are sweeping a lot instead of hosing down, and they are trying to go organic as much as possible. So not too much pollution over there. Just a couple things they can't control. Sidewalks, no spraying the cracks in the sidewalks. Maybe people are pulling weeds out deliberately or by hand. And of course, you can't control all that. There's just pollution on road. You can't control all that. Okay, so now let's try making it rain. Okay. Okay, so let's put it we're going to make sure it's folded in the middle. So we've got 2 watersheds, and we're going to put the edges up on the side of your cookie tray or sheet or whatever you have. And so side by side, okay? And what we're looking for, what we're going to try to watch is we're going to try to watch and see if we can get some of this pollution into the creek and see if that creek will flow down into our ocean with the spray. Oh, just instantly into the water. We're basically turning the creek purple, and there it goes. It's running down. Right, oh my gosh, okay. Really bad for water quality, bad for the fish in the ocean. There might be other things in there that are harmful to people recreating as well. Okay. And I don't know if you could see this, but it really comes off the tape, the pollution moves off that tape. The red marker moves off that tape really fast because it's so smooth. It's so impervious or impermeable. Whereas when it's up on the paper, it kind of sits there. It's not going to wash off as fast. Okay? So if you didn't actually see the red come into your creek, that's okay. If you watched it, if you even saw it get in there, but you didn't see the creek turn purple, that's fine. That is just like real pollution. Pesticides, I call them bug poison because that's what they are. We can't see them. We are measuring them at extremely low concentrations in creeks, and yet we know they're harmful to the aquatic insects. If it's designed to kill a bug in your yard, it's going to kill bugs or aquatic insects, or at least harm them in the creeks, and that's what we really want to work to protect our creek ecosystem. Okay, now let's try the same thing on the left side. It's our low impact watershed. We're going to have the same amount of rain. We've got the same amount of built things, road, storm drain, parking lot. I've got to make sure we're sloped here. We've got water flowing, we've got our creek flowing. So far it's all blue getting into the ocean. Good job. Okay, so we did have some overflow up here, and it is working its way to the creek, but it's moving a lot slower. Because it's on the paper as opposed to on the tape, and it is getting in levels that we can't see. We still want to protect against it as much as possible. We had nothing come down the storm drain because we didn't even put any pollution in it. So just clean rain down the drain. Oh, and I didn't even point out, this curb inlet, for one, has a screen on it that keeps trash out, and for two, has a sign that says no dumping. I'm sure you've all seen these. You might not have known that we put those grates in specifically to prevent trash and extra leaf material from getting into the drains. Okay, so up here on our built side, we pulled the buildings back further from the creek, for one. So there's time, and same with the factory. The factory on this side was really close to the creek. On this side, we moved it back. Here we put all of our pollution on the paper, so we're only putting our pesticides on, or any spot treatments that we really need. We're trying to keep off of hard surfaces that are then connected to driveways and gutters and roads. Our road is even further from the creek, and we have a lot less pollution in general. We made a commitment on this side to use organic gardening, to clean up our oil leaks, to sweep up all our dirt and our trash. And that's called true source control. And that is really the holy grail. The less pollution we can even create, the better. And then we want to pull it back from the creek as far as possible and have as much natural landscape to absorb the pollutants and get them into the water table where they can naturally be treated before they just run off into our creeks. So I hope you thought that was fun. And I encourage you to just repeat this 2 or 3 times, make up your own. Sometimes the water doesn't flow that well off of the paper, so you could, we suggested getting some wax paper, and then you could draw your own housing parcel, whether it's an apartment or a house. You could kind of draw where you have your house and your gardens and your downspouts, and you could draw those in crayon or Sharpie so they don't get washed off, and then you could repeat the experiment multiple times by putting more red and pollution on it. Have fun. Okay, now I just want to connect this back to what we're doing here in the Creeks Division. So we have an outreach campaign. We have a lot of bus ads, radio ads, some really clever TV ads that you can watch on our website. Here's an example of one of the bus ads that you might see. So storm drains flow into our creeks and ocean untreated. No dumping. We've got the grate on there, but still, any water that might have a pesticide in it that runs down a driveway and then into a gutter is going to get into the ocean and the creek and harming the creek critters. And we're really trying to restore the majestic steelhead. They're very sensitive, and they're eating food that's very sensitive to pollutants. Okay, there's a couple other things that we're doing, maybe not within the Creeks Division, but okay, so we go and sample for a lot of these pollutants. We have a really advanced understanding of what some of the pollutants are in our creeks, and we send that information off to other groups that are helping to affect policy. And so, and here's some of the other kind of science. This is another group that has actually created replicate driveways and treated them with different strengths of pesticides and different application rates, and tried to figure out the least problematic ways to apply them. And then working with data like that and data like we have from collecting water quality samples and finding pesticides, there's been changes in the actual rules of how the pesticides are applied. And I think this will make sense, having done our experiment. We cannot apply to the garage door or driveway. This is for fipronil in California. And this is for commercial applicators, pest control companies. And this was a big change. They can only apply 6 inches away from the foundation. And they cannot apply during the rainy season. This is an example for another class of pesticides called pyrethroids. And these are recent changes. They can only apply to the side of the building. They cannot go wider than 1 inch of spray. They can do it into mulch, that's okay. Their crack and crevice treatment is extremely limited. And to spray like around windows where insects might be getting in, ants or spiders or termites, they can only do that if it's covered by an eave so that rain isn't just washing the stuff right down the driveway. if you're really interested in this and you want to go a step further and look online, there's some fun modeling that's very user-friendly. And you can look at how the different kinds of lands cover affect the amount of water that runs off versus soaks in. And you can go to wikiwatershed.org model. And there's a couple different models that you can do. You can even like do models for your neighborhood or our town. You can play around with it. It's a really good setup. So I think we'll get ready to wrap up. Have there been any questions? No questions. Okay. So I hope that you will create some of your own watersheds on paper and show us the results. And feel free to type in any questions. Okay. Thanks.